Welcome to Wine Country at Work. I'm Ralph D. Meachus, and today I'm here with George Weber, a very talented speaker who does a variety of characters. And what's most fascinating to me is the way in which he has created his business here in wine country out of the fabric of our history. It's really quite remarkable. So welcome, George.
Thank you, Ralph. Happy to be here.
Yes. The other day you mentioned that in terms of General Vallejo, there was a lot written. He had written quite a bit about his life.
Yes.
Did the Count leave much of a written
A great deal. The
history
Count was an
behind?
excellent writer, and there are books that he wrote that are available. They're not in current publication. They can be procured using something remarkable, the internet. I've heard about this amazing thing. He wrote the second book on America in the Hungarian language.
Really?
Yes. And that was called Travels in America, and he wrote it in 1841. He also produced a book that was printed by Harper Brothers in 1861. He described his trip to Europe in search of vinifera in 1861. And it was published by Harper Brothers in 1862. And that is available. And he was a very good writer, and he spoke English and Latin, Hungarian, German, and French.
French, of course.
Yeah, French, of course.
So many young men would go to France for their education.
Well, when the Russians colonized the Sonoma coast in 1812, and General Vallejo went to explain to them that they were in his territory illegally, they spoke in French, as that was the language of international diplomacy,
Yes.
really until English supplanted it, and not very long ago,
No. Well,
20 years ago.
at one time, all of the major universities, the medical schools, the art schools were all in Paris.
France was the most sophisticated nation on earth for hundreds of years.
In the 1820s, 1830s in the United States, there were no medical schools.
Correct.
None of that. Anyone
right.
who wanted to learn something went to Europe.
Yeah,
So-
Lister was not an American.
no.
No, they were doing, the germ theory of disease was understood in the 1850s in France. Gosh darn it, we should have listened to him
Yes.
during the Civil War.
Would have been helpful.
Darn
have
helpful.
been helpful.
Because it was understood, but everyone said, no way, those germs, no way, those germs. They were doing operations using anesthetic and not transmitting germs with sterilized tools in the 1850s in Europe, but not in America.
No.
That's a very sad story.
So when you were doing your research about the Count, because while you did it initially as you became the Count, you had, I'm sure, add more layers to your knowledge because you're simply being called upon more often to answer questions. What sources did you use?
Well, the main book on Count August and Horesty is a book called Strong Wine, which was written by Brian McGinty, published in 1989. He is the great-great-great-grandson of the Count and is the only full-scale 700-page biography of the Count. And this man, who was both a historian and an attorney and an author, spent 11 years researching this book. So he's the one who found the Count's baptismal certificate. He is the one who discovered many, many true facts about his ancestor that no one knew for sure till then. So it's called Strong Wine. It's a very good read.
Well, the great thing about books that most people don't realize unless you read them 4 and 5 and 6 times is that there's always much more there than you realize that you don't get on the first way through. And people who are researching tend to keep going back and forth into subjects. I make it a habit to read books 4 and 5 times.
I do too. I've read Strong Wine 4 times now, but there's always more to learn. And it's quite an amazing story.
Well, it's also interesting that you're reading about the man and thinking about how it fits into your performance and your persona while walking the same places he walked.
This is interesting, certainly.
You know what I mean? You're smelling the same types of trees.
I know, it's incredible. I went back to Hungary and to Tokaj in May.
Really?
Yes, our city of Sonoma, where Buena Vista Winery is, across the Mayakama for those people here in Napa. We go over the Mayakama.
Yes.
And we were able to form a sister city between Sonoma and Tokai.
Toka. Oh,
And so we hosted a delegation in 2012 here, and we led a delegation there. And after being in Tokai, in Hungary, in Budapest, coming back, I now understand in a visceral manner how exciting it was for the Count. Because the highest mountain in the entire country of Hungary is 1,800 feet tall. That's the tallest mountain.
oh.
We have the Maicama, 4,000, St. Helena, 4,200 feet tall. We have vineyards that are 2 miles long and a half mile wide. There aren't vineyards like that in Kentucky. They're smaller. They're beautiful. Instead of San Francisco Bay and San Pablo Bay adding moisture to the air, they had the confluence of the Tisla and the Bodrog rivers that come together at the town of Tokai. And they had botrytis this year,
Oh.
which is very good.
Oh,
Botrytis, the noble rot.
right.
They want the noble rot.
Oh, they make the dessert wines.
Make the
of course.
dessert wines because they can sell their dessert wines for $200 a half bottle, and the dry wines go for $8
Right.
a bottle.
Of course.
And they've been very worried because it's been too dry, but they had botrytis this year, 2013. Botrytis failed for 2 years, but back this year. And they gauge their sweet wines on the number of baskets of grapes. So it's called butonios. So 3, 4, 5, 6 butonios. It says it on the label. If it says 6 butonios, this is a very sweet wine.
Ah,
If it says aju, then that wine is special. It has botrytis, the noble rot, which puts little holes in the skins of the grapes and lets some of the water escape, thereby also increasing the sweetness. And this wine is high in acid and high in sugar. And there are wines in Tokai, in caves 300 years old, where the wine itself is 300-year-old bottles, still drinkable. There is no other wine like it on earth.
that's remarkable.
It is remarkable. In the between 1100 and 1600, the Hungarians fought the Turks, and they hired mercenaries to help them fight. They paid them in wine,
Always a good coin. Yes.
and because it was worth more than anything else.
yes.
The Russians, the czars, bought the entire vintage sometimes of Tokai. Bought it all, every bottle, which was very disappointing to other Europeans.
Yes.
And they complained to the people of Tokai, and the people said, they are paying up. Would you like to have some too? You can have it. You must just pay the same or more.
Yes. Interesting.
They know about business there.
Yes.
Yeah, they do. Yes,
They're very
a
commercial.
long time.
Yes. Well, the Tokaj was, for many, many years, one of the top wines in the world.
Well, if you go back 500 years, the two great wine regions were Burgundy and Tokai.
Right.
Bordeaux was a swamp.
Right. Well, yeah, until the Dutch showed up with their dikes. Yeah.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah. 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 Tokaj is. There's so many stories about that. Sweet wines were, up until not that long ago, the most popular wines. You know, the dry wines that we're accustomed to today are actually a relatively recent, change in the palate. Probably because life is better. Years ago, life was rough. You needed sweet wines to make it feel good.
An interesting point.
Yeah. Well, people don't realize with sweet wines, for instance, Chateau d'Yquem, which is one of the top botrytis-based wines. Normally, you can get 5, 6, 7 bottles of wine from a single vine. When you get to the very high-end wines around here, maybe you're down to 1 to 2 bottles per vine. But when you get to something like Chateau d'Yquem, it's 1 glass per vine. It's incredibly concentrated.
Well, this is the thing
Inexpensive.
that few Americans understand. We, in the wine industry, have taught many Americans that we make the best wine. It's not the case. Sorry, American vintners.
Well, the thing about wine is that it's the place. And I mean that in terms of you went to Tokaj, you traveled in the area that the Count had traveled. You came back to Buena Vista, you walked the land, that smelled the land, felt the land, and it informed your experience and your performance. When you go into a vineyard, the way the vines smell it's going to be there in the wine. When you drink a wine from a place around the world, you're visiting that place for a while because there's no way the wine cannot be of its place. Many times I can smell a wine and give you an idea of where in the valley it's coming from because I walk those vineyards all the time, and it's just an Italian nose. I recognize it.
An Italian nose, that is right.
Oh, it's very true. There's a reason that they're designed this way. So it's not just, ornament.
What do you call an Italian with no hands?
Mute.
Yes, this is the answer. Mute.
What do you get when you put 12 Italians in a room?
Bedlam?
13 opinions. Which is a little bit like what you get when you put 12 winemakers in a room too, which is why it's such an interesting feel. You get 13, maybe 14 opinions because they are drinking.
Yes, well, it's our job.
It's a fascinating type of industry because the history of wine is so long. It goes back thousands of years. That's why being a historian within the wine world, that other people didn't think about this had to be a lack of courage. That's all I can say.
It is recently, according to recent archaeological discoveries, Ralph, it is believed that the discovery of fermented beverages made civilization itself possible, as it made it more fun to be with other people.
Ah, the social quality.
This is actually, not making that up.
Oh, I believe it. Well,
the very first god was named Gestin. She was a Babylonian god. She was a Babylonian god.
Hasn't changed much, yes.
And that was 6,000 years ago. The first wine god written in language was named Gestin.
Gestin.
Because it was the women who gathered the grapes, and one of them noticed, after having squeezed some grape juice into a pot, returning at a later time, that it tasted different, you see. And then she was the first person ever to receive what we in the wine business call a buzz.
A buzz, yes.
We call it. And then she noticed she felt better. This is the term that we wine professionals use to describe the effects of alcohol upon the human system. We feel better. Better.
We were talking before about Churchill's great quote, and anyone who's been in business knows that it really is like that. You fail and you fail and fail, and what you try to do is fail not quite so badly.
Differently. You must continue failing differently.
Right.
This is the key.
I was told one time that there's a winery over in Sonoma. It's been in the same family since the 30s, and it had gone to the next generation, and the accountants came to the owner and said, "We don't mind you losing money. Can you manage to not lose quite so much?"
Yeah, that was a good point. Yes.
Right. Mark Twain is a character you love doing, and you mentioned, you confided in me that it's a character that is hard to do commercially.
Well, it is. Well, it's hard to do commercially here, you see, because although Sam Clemens, did write for the Napa County Reporter in 1864, 3 different squibs, this simple fact is not known to most Americans.
Really?
I'm shifting to the count right there.
That's okay.
And so I just enjoy being Sam Clemens. Why, I have a tour called the Mark Twain Historic Saloon Tour of the Sonoma Plaza, where you basically follow around myself, Sam Clemens, and I tell the stories of my life, and we drink. And the tagline is, "Have a drink with Sam, but he ain't buying."
The other day
I force people to pay for my drinks.
That's very smart.
And I charge them.
Yes, there is an advantage.
Wow, that's an excellent tour, I might add.
Yeah, there's an advantage to being a celebrity. People will buy you drinks. Actually, the other day,
it is a requirement, sir.
A part of our tour was actually at Downtown Joe's, which I hadn't been in probably a year or so.
Downtown Joe's, friendliest place in Napa.
And I was charmingly surprised by what a nice experience it was. I don't typically go there during the day, but it was just delightful.
You go there at night, then?
Exactly, but also I was there with you. It was like,
they're very fond of me.
We walked in, and it was, the most popular man in town just walked in the door. It was wonderful.
I thank you. Well, it's the beer.
It probably helps, but...
Delicious beer, by the way.
It's actually something I remember, because when we were in Sonoma, that I would walk around the plaza and you tended to get to know everybody. And now I realize the same thing has happened to you in downtown Napa.
Yeah, I love Napa. I love Sonoma. There should be no rivalry between our towns. all I'll say.
I agree completely. Well, as a tour guide, I tend to view the two as the same.
Yes, I know, and in fact, visitors view it the same way. The only people that don't feel that way are over there.
Yes. It's funny.
They don't like it over here in Napa. They are wrong, by the way, Napa viewers. They are wrong.
I always describe it as it's like having two people standing with their backs to each other, because the big Mayacamas Range is in between, and there's only one flat road between the two.
True.
So if you were a kid in Sonoma, you'd never think about dating a girl in Napa because there's just no way to get there, really.
Well, it's harder.
It is harder, you know. But it's funny, the kids from downtown Sonoma do know Napa because all the good fast food restaurants have always been over here. But the kids from Napa, I've run into kids here who've barely ever been to Sonoma.
Well, Napa has been blessed with many fine qualities. What it does lack is a central location like the leafy and green plaza. And so Veterans Memorial Park is an attempt by Napa to have the same sort of central meeting place. And it has been successful, but it is impossible to duplicate the 8 acres of lawn that are in the middle of the Sonoma Plaza. And by the way, in the middle of the plaza, City Hall, its address is quite impressive. Number 1, the Plaza, Sonoma, California.
Nice.
That's the address for the City Hall. And General Vallejo laid the streets out, laid the plaza out, and everything's numbered off and named off the plaza. So there's the plaza, and then there's 1st Street East, 2nd Street East, 3rd Street East, and then there's a 1st Street West, 2nd Street West. And so he did that in 1834, and it is that way to the day. By the way, there's a Donner Street in Sonoma. That you know why? Because it was the winter of 1846 to 47, and the Donner Party was caught up there in the Sierra, and General Vallejo put $5,000 down to help rescue them. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Oh my gosh.
And 2 of the Donner girls came, they were orphaned, and they grew up in Sonoma for the rest of their lives. And there is a house on Donner Street. That was where they grew up. They've been orphaned at the age of 10 and 7.
That's a remarkable
after their
story.
parents died.
Like I said, the number of details that you know about the area have become really quite remarkable.
I don't read novels.
It's really quite, because like I said, I remember when I was starting my tour business about the same time you were starting your speaking business, and we would meet down at the National Speakers Association at the meetings.
That is true.
You know, so we were building our particular aspects of it at the same time. So watching the evolution for me has been remarkable. Because
thank you.
I love watching businesses grow. I think that starting businesses is one of the most interesting things you can do.
Well, I'm in danger of being an overnight success after the last 12 years. So
yes, it's always like that.
When
Zappa,
Frank Zappa, the sainted Frank Zappa, finally had one successful album, he named it Overnight Success.
Overnight
Success.
Success.
That's the name of the album, which of course is the joke.
Yes.
It was his 35th album. He produced over 60.
Yeah, would have made a good winemaker and grower. Patience.
Well, he just loved making music, that's all.
And lots and lots of patience. I do understand that. So we could go on like this for hours.
Well, and I'll tell you, Channel 28, Napa Valley TV, a wonderful organization full of absolutely fabulous volunteers. I salute all of you, and Napa in general, a chosen place upon the earth.
Oh, boy, do you...
According to the Twitter feed, as you know, the happiest town in America.
Yes.
According to Twitter posts. They analyzed them all. This is about, it came a year ago. Napa, happiest town in the United States.
And it's not just the wine. We have other reasons,
too. Of course, not just the wine. It's the weather. It's the fact Napa's not bankrupt. We have, and visitors come here from all over the world. We get to enjoy fine dining. Masaharu Morimoto, a personal friend, that's an exaggeration, but still in all, he's a remarkable guy. And if you want some $1,000 plate sushi, by gosh, you can have it right here in Napa.
Yes.
And the sushi is airlifted by carrier pigeon every morning from Hawaii.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's why it costs so much.
Yes.
It's amazing to see those little pigeons flapping sushi all the way. from Hawaii.
Which then makes me wonder how much of these stories you're telling me actually are made up.
Oh, most of them, yeah, most of them.
One final thing I want to cover, and this was
A pleasure, sir.
this was a fascinating thing to me. We were talking about the significance of the Sonoma Plaza and how it really creates a center for a relatively small town. The whole downtown is about 2,000 people. The whole surrounding area is 9,000. Napa is a big town in comparison. In the walking tour you've created in downtown Napa, because of the way in which the architecture has changed, the development has happened over the last 7 to 8 years, which has been remarkable, you in some ways are describing the real center, the heart of Napa, and kind of in your daily pathway.
The tour of the Napa Walking Tour, by the way, all the information is at napawalkingtour.com. Very tricky on that one,
yes.
And we actually walk the original town site. The original town site is basically where we walk, as the original town site comes from where Division Street is and where the river is, and then up Brown Street to the river, and from where Napa Creek enters the river to Division Street. That was the original town site laid out by Nathan Coombs in January of 1848, not knowing that about 2.5 months later, someone will walk into one of the stores and take a beautiful gold nugget and say, I'd like to pay for this here bolt of fabric with this here gold nugget there, partner. And that was how Napa boomed. So Napa, gold rush, an amazing town, a rich town, different from Sonoma because of the river.
The river.
Without a river, Sonoma could never grow. Why are there adobe brick buildings still on the Sonoma Plaza? It was an economic backwater. There was no real development push.
Right.
Until the advent of the wine industry, really in the 1980s, Sonoma was dairies, and beginning in the 1950s, retirement communities. The Valley of the Moon, which is a retirement trailer park, was the first adult-only trailer park in California.
Really?
Yeah, Valley of the Moon. It's beautiful. It's over 50 years old. It was just land, and they chopped it up, and now there's 50-year-old trees. So it's quite a lovely place to live.
I know that the average age in downtown Sonoma is something like 48. It's as old as the average age in Italy, which is the oldest population on the planet.
Well, it's expensive to live in Sonoma, so you don't see a lot of young people living there.
No.
But the biggest day of the year in the Sonoma bar scene is the day before Thanksgiving, when everyone comes back from all over the United States. So the Wednesday night before Thursday Thanksgiving is the biggest single day. Really, it's wall to wall. A couple of years ago, I forgot, and I went to Murphy's, one of my favorite pubs, for a drink, and it took me 40 minutes to get to the bar. I'm not kidding.
Oh my gosh.
It was that crowded.
A hardship.
Because it was.
You died of
and
thirst.
I was very thirsty, and I was surrounded by all these beautiful young people too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming, George.
Thank you, and thank you, Napa Valley TV and Napa Valley at Work.
Napa Valley at Work.
Very good. Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you. So thanks for joining us for this episode of Wine Country at Work, and we'll see you next time.